Good morning, it's Monday, and I look like it's morning because I am getting ready to go to boxing, so forgive my pre-gym look of, pretty much my hair is like in a weird state. That's okay. I'm going to talk to you today about compulsive overeating. Hold on, sorry, I gotta adjust the camera here. Trying to get it a good angle so it doesn't look so weird. Let's see, that's a little better. Okay, so I didn't put a video up last week. Felicia covered everything wonderfully. I was in the middle of finals, but now spring semester's over, so it's just great. And we're going to talk about compulsive overeating and food addictions, and as it relates to being a stress disorder, or an anxiety-related disorder. Basically, I've kind of got, I know that there is a lot of following intuitive eating for eating disorder treatment. However, I have a little bit different opinion when it comes to what drives compulsive overeating in and of itself. Because there is an emotional component, but there's also a physiological component. And this is true for all eating disorders, but especially for overeating. The reason why I say this is because there's a lot of evidence that shows that our American diet, or westernized diet that we have in the United States, and hence industrialization of food that has transferred over to some other foreign fortunate countries. Actually, industrialization of food started in England, but the United States really took it to the next level. And what happened with the industrialization of food is that we started mass producing crops, and so these crops include wheat, corn, soy. Those are the main crop products, or crops that we have in the United States. And the problem with this is, I guess, what I would call the fast food or McDonaldization of America that has transferred over to many other countries, is that in the process we have lost the value of whole foods, and what happens when that happens is we have a lot of products that are produced every year based on these three cash crops. And what that means is that you get a different package form of about 15,000 new products every single year that are introduced into our food system. The second problem is government subsidizes these crops. So when you go into a store, why is it that you can buy a box of macaroni and cheese for very inexpensively, but you go to a fruit and vegetable section and you have, a whole real food that's not packaged, and it's much more expensive? Well, the reason for this is that in the United States, that the Food and Agriculture Department, the Department of Food and Agriculture, was created to benefit farmers and to benefit the beef and dairy industry, not to benefit Americans, or the general American public. So while on one hand we are able to produce large amounts of food, there's lots of ethical issues with that. We produce large amount of food-like substances, as Michael Pollan puts it, in his book, In Defense of Food. I would highly recommend that read Michael Pollan. In Defense of Food is a great book for understanding what drives us to overeat, in my opinion. Because what happens is we get these foods that, because they are basically beige foods, or stripped foods that aren't even a whole grain, because it's wheat, corn, and soy. However, they're mostly highly processed, highly refined, and stripped down to very simple carbohydrates, which means they are basically flavorless. So almost every food that you buy in a package in America and in probably many countries that have taken on the standard of westernized food is flavored. And just because it says natural flavor, it doesn't mean that it is truly a natural flavor, because a natural flavor, at least in the United States, I know Europe is a little bit more strict with some of their food labeling practices and what they will allow into their food system, and good for Europe. The United States, shame on the United States. But I think it's actually very similar in Canada. Okay, but anyway, so in order to be called a natural product, it just has to come from some natural form. It doesn't mean that it's natural in the processing of it. A strawberry flavoring contains over 300 ingredients. A natural strawberry flavoring contains over 300 ingredients, where a lab-produced strawberry flavoring that's produced with a couple of chemicals and is probably actually healthier in your body only has a few different ingredients. But because of the laws that protect the food industry, we don't have to list that here in the United States. What's in a natural ingredient? We just have, we can say, okay, it's a natural ingredient, so people assume that it's okay. The other problem is high fructose corn syrup and other products that are put in to make the products taste okay, and the food colorings that are put in. Basically, what this does is it tricks your body, because so you're buying a whole bunch of these processed foods that are basically highly refined carbohydrates with flavorings, which trick your body into think you're getting something you're not, of high amounts of sodium and sugar, and your body is deficient in some things, and your body doesn't know what it's deficient in, so it wants to eat more, okay? Emotionally, just like in relation to like the Keys study on starvation, when you start starving your body, you want, depression rates increase, obsessions and food rituals increase, as it relates to anorexia. Basically, we are an underfed or a malnourished people who are overfed. And so this is a lot of what drives food addictions, and physiologically what drives food addictions and what drives overeating, okay? So, believe it or not, if you can get your diet to a truly balanced diet where you're including mostly whole foods, and I would recommend that you go to a dietitian who is knowledgeable in eating disorders or compulsive overeating, and have a balanced diet meal plan. A lot of people will find that it is much easier to break this compulsive overeating cycle, even the emotional part, because what happens is your body is getting fed, so therefore your stress and anxiety level goes down, your body's getting the nutrients it needs, it doesn't think it's continuing to need to eat all the time, because what you're trying to do is your body's going crazy, so you start eating more of this highly refined food, and your body wants more because it's trying to get a nutrient that is not there, but it's confused. So it takes practice, and it takes some structure to get in the habit of getting into a routine of eating healthy, mostly whole foods, and foods that are real foods, that are in the form of food, not food that is highly processed. When you can do this, and when you are able to add in a healthy amount of exercise, not a compulsive amount of exercise, but a healthy amount of exercise, your body will start to regulate this, and your emotions also change. Now, that said, it is important to be careful not to reinforce food rules that are unhealthy, obsessions about food, and that you probably need to be in some kind of psychotherapy. Not everybody. Sometimes just that in itself will completely change things for people, because it addresses a lot of things at one time and you deal with your emotions better. But if you're having a hard time dealing with your emotions, then seeking somebody who's knowledgeable in eating disorders and addiction, and stress addictions can be very helpful while you're also reconstructing your diet and meal plan. So those are my recommendations, and I hope you have a good